Imagine standing on a freezing bridge in St. Petersburg.
Right.
It's 1846. And you have just been, well, completely humiliated in front of everyone you know.
A total nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you were physically thrown out of ball you weren't even invited to.
Right.
You were soaked to the bone, your shoes are just ruined in the mud,
Okay.
and your reputation is basically reduced to ash.
It's rock bottom.
Totally. And then you look up through the sleet, and a man walks past you,
Okay.
and he stops. And he is wearing your exact coat.
Oh, wow.
He has your exact face, right down to the same receding hairline.
That is terrifying.
Right. And tomorrow morning, he's going to walk into your office and, well, steal your job.
Yeah, that is the terrifying, disorienting precipice we are standing on today.
It really is.
We are stepping into the incredibly murky, psychologically treacherous waters of Fyodor Dostoevsky.
Yes, we are.
Specifically, we're looking at a piece of his early work that, honestly, it fundamentally broke the mold of 19th century literature.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about his 1846 novella, The Double.
It's a text that completely bewildered its initial audience. I mean, they didn't know what to do with it.
No, they didn't.
When you look at the source material we've gathered for this deep dive, which, ranges from modern psychological analyses to the intense, almost surgical literary critiques by people like Vladimir Nabokov.
Right, Nabokov had a lot to say.
He really did. You see this massive disconnect between what Dostoevsky wrote and what his contemporary readers were actually prepared to understand.
Yeah, they thought they were getting a standard St. Petersburg bureaucratic comedy.
Or maybe like a ghost story,
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Instead, they were handed this disturbingly accurate clinical depiction of a total psychic fracture.
And Nabokov, who notoriously disliked much of Dostoevsky's later, more ideological work.
He really wasn't a fan of the later stuff.
No, he wasn't. But he pointed to The Double as a flawless masterpiece.
He recognized that Dostoevsky wasn't just writing about madness. He had constructed a narrative architecture that literally traps the reader inside the decaying mind of the protagonist.
Our mission today is to completely map out that trap.
Let's do it.
We are going to examine the psychological mechanics behind losing your grip on reality.
Right.
The very real, very physical weight of societal hierarchy. And most importantly, we are going to spend a significant portion of our time today wrestling with a profound philosophical dilemma.
Yes, a really deep one.
A dilemma about the nature of the ego and who actually holds the title deed to your identity.
That's the core of it.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can figure out what the double actually is, we have to forensically examine the original man.
We have to look at the structural engineering of the society that built him.
Exactly, because that is the exact same machinery that inevitably crushed him.
So we are looking at a man named Yakov Petrovich Golyadkin.
Right.
On paper, his entire existence is defined by his title. He is a titular counselor in the Russian civil service.
Which means he's basically a low to mid-level government clerk.
Yeah, nothing glamorous.
He lives in a very modest, somewhat dingy apartment with his servant, Petrushka.
And Petrushka, the text makes abundantly clear, views his master with absolute contempt.
Oh, total contempt. It's palpable.
Yeah.
And Golyadkin himself, he operates in this state of constant vibrating insecurity.
He alters his entire physical bearing depending on who is in the room.
Right, like he will bow and scrape and perform total subservience to a superior.
But the second that superior turns the corner, Golyadkin's face twists into pure resentment.
But that two-faced behavior, it isn't just a personal failing, is it?
No, it's a survival mechanism. It's mandated by the environment.
How so?
Well, to really grasp Golyadkin's underlying pathology, we have to look closely at the societal blueprint of 1840s St. Petersburg.
Okay, set the scene for us.
This was a world dictated entirely by Peter the Great's table of ranks.
Right, the table of ranks.
And this wasn't just some loose professional hierarchy. It was a rigid, codified, 14-tier system that dictated your entire worth as a human being.
And Golyadkin is a rank 9, a titular counselor.
Rank 9 is arguably the most psychologically agonizing position on that entire table.
Why rank 9 specifically?
Because in the Russian civil service of this era, reaching rank 8 granted you hereditary nobility.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it meant you had truly made it, and you secured your family's future forever.
But rank 9.
Rank 9, where Golyadkin sits, was the absolute ceiling for a commoner who lacked powerful aristocratic connections.
So it's basically the purgatory of the civil service.
Exactly. You are high enough to be expected to maintain the appearance of a gentleman.
Like, you need a servant, a carriage, a decent coat.
Right. But you are permanently locked out of the true elite. You are constantly pressing your nose against the glass.
So his mind is essentially a ledger where the math simply refuses to add up.
Perfectly said.
He has the expenses and the social obligations of a nobleman, but the salary and the fundamental respect of a peasant.
It's an engine designed to generate status anxiety.
And that anxiety breeds a very specific type of paranoia, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Golyadkin's workplace is an arena of constant, silent warfare.
Every glance, every misplaced memo, every whisper between desks.
He interprets it all as a coordinated attack on his precarious social standing.
And he fixates this paranoia on a man named Andrei Filipovich. Right?
Yes. His section head, who happens to be close friends with Golyadkin's former benefactor, Osify Ivanovich.
So Golyadkin has convinced himself that Andrei Filipovich is dedicating his life to destroying him.
He truly believes his colleagues sit around devising elaborate multi-stage conspiracies to ruin the reputation of Yakov Petrovich Golyadkin.
It is the absolute furthest extreme of imposter syndrome.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, most of us have had that fleeting, irrational thought that our coworkers have a secret group chat where they complain about us.
Sure, we've all been there.
But Golyadkin operates as if that secret group chat is the central organizing principle of the universe.
The tragedy of Golyadkin is his desperate attempt to rationalize this paranoia by claiming a moral high ground.
Oh, we see this vividly in that early, incredibly uncomfortable scene where he visits his physician, Dr. Christian Ivanovich.
That scene is a masterpiece of awkwardness.
It really is.
Yep.
He bursts into the doctor's office completely unannounced.
Wow, right.
He sits down, suddenly realizes the doctor never actually invited him to sit, leaps back up, realizes jumping up makes him look manic.
And then awkwardly lowers himself back down.
Exactly. He is practically humming with nervous energy.
And then he just launches into this bizarre defensive monologue.
He aggressively insists to the doctor that he is a straightforward man.
Right. He says he doesn't use masks, he doesn't scheme, he operates in the light of day.
He is frantically trying to establish an alibi for a crime he hasn't even been accused of.
What's fascinating here is the interaction between the doctor and the patient. It reveals a massive historical blind spot in 19th century medicine.
How do you mean?
Well, Christian Ivanovich is a physician, a man trained in physiology, not what we would now call psychiatry.
Right, psychiatry wasn't really a thing yet.
So as he listens to Golyadkin's erratic, fragmented rambling about his enemies and his own purity, the doctor filters this entirely through a somatic lens.
He diagnoses Golyadkin with a sort of nervous exhaustion.
Yeah. The doctor's prescription is literally to go out, drink wine, and find some cheerful company.
He tells him to change his physical habits. It's like trying to fix a corrupted hard drive by putting a new case on the computer.
That's a great way to put it. The medical establishment of the 1840s fundamentally lacked the vocabulary to address a disease of the psyche.
So Christian Ivanovich thinks he is treating an imbalance of the humors, or a weakness of the nerves.
But Dostoevsky, who is entirely ahead of his time, is showing the reader a mind that is cannibalizing itself.
Golyadkin doesn't need a glass of wine.
No.
He needs an intervention to stop his internal reality from completely divorcing the external world.
Because sitting in that doctor's office, Golyadkin starts whispering about how his colleagues have forged a contract with a German cook simply to poison his reputation.
He is spinning these elaborate, absurd fictions.
He really is.
And what strikes me is the profound isolation of that moment.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
He is sitting 2 feet away from a man whose entire profession is healing, and they're speaking completely different languages.
And that isolation acts as an incubator.
An incubator for the madness.
Exactly. When a person's internal narrative diverges so sharply from objective reality, and there is no mechanism, no therapy, no empathetic listener to tether them back to the world, the internal pressure simply builds.
So Golyadkin spends every waking second trying to maintain the facade of the dignified, straightforward titular counselor.
While his unfulfilled desires and deep-seated shame are boiling just beneath the surface.
Something has to give. I mean, the ledger has to balance.
And that brings us to the catalyst of the entire narrative, the breaking point.
The dinner party for Clara Osifyevna.
Yes. Clara is the daughter of Osify Ivanovich, the benefactor we mentioned earlier.
And this is a massive, high society event. a ball, a lavish dinner.
And Golyadkin is explicitly, unequivocally banned from attending.
Like, the servants at the front door have strict orders. Under no circumstances is Yakov Petrovich to be admitted.
Which triggers a psychological compensation mechanism that is just painful to witness.
It really is. Golyadkin cannot accept the reality of his exclusion.
So what does he do? He rents an expensive carriage for the entire day?
He buys an entirely new, ill-fitting wardrobe.
And then he embarks on a completely fictional shopping spree at the local bazaar.
Oh, this part is so hard to read. He walks into high-end merchants, examines thousands of rubles worth of silver, porcelain, furniture.
He haggles over the price, too.
Yeah, and then he leaves a deposit of just a few kopecks, promising to return later to finalize the massive purchase.
It's an adult playing make-believe.
That's exactly what it is. He is creating a theater of wealth to soothe his own wounded ego.
He needs the shopkeepers to look at him as a man of immense means, even if it's just for 5 minutes.
But the shopping spree doesn't cure the wound. He still goes to the party.
The spatial dynamics of the party scene are brilliant.
Because he doesn't dare approach the grand front entrance.
No, he slips into the building through the servants' entrance.
And climbs the dark, freezing back stairs leading up to the kitchen.
He stands on a landing amidst piles of garbage and old furniture.
In the dark. In the freezing cold. For 3 straight hours.
He is physically positioned on the exact boundary between the lower-class servant world he fears falling into and the brightly lit, warm, aristocratic world he desperately wants to join.
He just stands there, listening to the waltzes and the clinking glasses through a crack in the door.
Muttering French proverbs to himself to try and drum up the courage to walk in.
It is the architectural manifestation of rank 9 on the table of ranks.
Yes, he is permanently on the threshold, shivering in the dark.
The French proverbs are such a tragic touch.
French was the language of the Russian aristocracy.
So, by whispering these phrases to himself, he is trying to magically summon the aristocratic identity he lacks.
But the friction between his self-image as a man of action and his reality as a pathetic clerk hiding in the trash, it becomes too much.
The dam breaks.
He throws open the door, rushes through the kitchen, and bursts into the center of the ballroom.
And it's not a dramatic movie entrance.
No, it's a catastrophe.
He slips on the polished floor, the music screeches to a halt, the dancing stops.
Every eye in the room locks onto him.
He tries to saunter over to Clara and her father, but his body betrays him.
He stutters. He visibly trembles.
He tries to ask Clara for a dance, and she physically recoils and screams.
Social annihilation is absolute.
The society he so desperately wanted to integrate into physically expels him.
He is grabbed by the servants, dragged out of the warm light of the ballroom, and thrown out into the freezing November night.
Which takes us back to that freezing bridge. He flees into a raging St. Petersburg storm.
The sources describe the weather as a chaotic mix of snow, rain, and howling wind off the Fontanka River.
He is drenched, his new clothes are ruined, he loses his shoe in the mud and just keeps running.
He stops on the bridge over the river, staring down into the black water.
He wants to be annihilated. He wishes the earth would just open up and swallow him.
It is in this exact moment of total psychic collapse where his identity as a respectable clerk has been undeniably destroyed that the fracture occurs.
The encounter.
Yes.
He sees a figure walking through the storm. A man walking with the same hurried, anxious gait.
The man passes under a street lamp and Golyadkin freezes.
The man is wearing the same coat. He has the same bald spot. His face is an exact mirror image. And his name is Yakov Petrovich Golyadkin.
This is where we have to establish exactly what is happening in the narrative.
Right. So what does this all mean? Is this a ghost story, a sci-fi clone situation, or something else entirely?
The double, who we will call Golyadkin Jr., is not a supernatural entity. He is not a clone.
Yep.
He is a psychological projection. He is the physical manifestation of Golyadkin Sr.'s illness.
But the way Dostoevsky writes it, it doesn't feel like a hallucination. The prose doesn't suddenly get wavy and dreamlike.
That is the genius Nabokov highlighted. Dostoevsky forces us into an uncomfortably close first-person subjective viewpoint, disguised as a third-person narrative.
Right, so we don't get an objective narrator stepping in to say Golyadkin, having suffered a breakdown, began to hallucinate a twin.
Instead, the narrator's voice becomes infected by Golyadkin's own delirium. The text treats Junior as a completely real, physical being because, to Senior, he is a real physical being.
I wanted to get into the mechanics of that fracture, because the sources bring up a fascinating piece of medical history regarding Dostoevsky himself.
Yes, Dostoevsky suffered from temporal lobe epilepsy.
And that isn't just a biographical footnote, is it?
Not at all. It seems deeply woven into how this double is generated. It is the biological engine of the text.
Because temporal lobe epilepsy is completely different from the grand mal seizures people typically picture.
Exactly. It is centered in the part of the brain that processes sensory input, emotion, and memory.
So before a seizure, a sufferer often experiences an aura, right?
Yes. And this aura isn't just a headache. It can be a profound, terrifying alteration of reality.
The sources say sufferers report intense feelings of depersonalization, a sense that their consciousness is physically separating from their body.
Or an overwhelming, inexplicable sense of dread and impending doom.
So when Golyadkin is standing on that bridge, feeling a sudden chill and a nameless terror right before he sees the double.
Dostoevsky isn't just writing a spooky atmosphere. He is transcribing the exact neurological symptoms of an epileptic aura.
Wow.
He is using his own neurobiology to give texture to Golyadkin's psychological split.
Because during an aura, the brain can literally duplicate sensory input, right?
Yes, or misattribute the source of a thought. You can have a thought and truly perceive it as an external voice speaking to you.
And Dostoevsky lived with this precarious grip on reality.
He knew intimately what it felt like to have your own brain hijack your sensory experience.
Dostoevsky even signed letters to his brother as Golyadkin, stating he lived the psychological suffering of this character.
That makes the horror so much sharper.
It really does. Golyadkin isn't just imagining a friend. His nervous system is actively betraying him.
But what's fascinating is the immediate aftermath of this bridge encounter.
Right, the next morning, Junior is just sitting in Senior's apartment.
And the initial dynamic between them is surprisingly tender.
The honeymoon phase.
Right. Junior's sitting there looking pitiful. He tells Senior this long, tragic story about how he lost his previous job, how he has no money, how he was wandering the streets freezing.
And Senior eats it up.
He completely does.
He suddenly feels this massive rush of empathy. But crucially, it's an empathy mixed with superiority.
Yes. Senior finally has someone beneath him.
So he takes Junior in, feeds him, and they sit around drinking rum, bonding over their shared miseries.
Senior proudly declares, "We will stand together against our enemies."
For a few hours, the psychological ledger balances.
Senior feels safe because he is, practically speaking, offering comfort and protection to his own damaged inner child. He is soothing his own trauma.
But a psychological projection born out of intense shame and unmet ambition isn't going to stay a submissive, grateful roommate.
Exactly the opposite. A complex like this is parasitic.
Because the double represents everything Golyadkin Sr. desperately wanted to be, but failed to achieve due to his crippling anxiety.
Right. Senior wanted to be socially agile, charming, and favored by the bureaucracy.
And because he couldn't achieve it, his fractured mind creates a version of himself completely unburdened by those anxieties.
So Junior vanishes the next morning.
Senior goes into the office, terrified he's going to be fired for crashing the party the night before.
But instead, he finds Junior sitting directly across from him at a desk.
And Junior is everything Senior isn't.
Junior is slick. He's laughing with the clerks. He's flattering Andrei Filipovich.
He is navigating the social hierarchy of the office with absolute terrifying ease.
Junior is the unbound ego. He is the pure execution of ambition, completely devoid of morality, shame, or hesitation.
And as Junior rapidly ascends the social ladder, he begins to actively torment Senior.
He mocks him in front of their colleagues.
He literally, physically steals Senior's completed paperwork, runs into the boss's office, and takes credit for the work.
It's ruthless.
There is a scene that perfectly encapsulates the absolute maddening parasitic nature of the double. The incident with the 11 pies.
Oh, the restaurant scene. It's a brilliant piece of dark tragicomedy.
It is so funny, but so bleak. Senior goes into a restaurant to grab a quick lunch. He is stressed, so he eats a single pastry. One pie.
Just one.
He asks for the bill, and the waiter hands him a slip for 11 pies.
Senior is completely bewildered.
Right, he argues with the waiter, saying he only ate one, but the waiter doesn't argue, he just points toward the door.
And Senior turns, and he sees Junior standing right at the exit.
Junior had just stood there, rapidly consuming 10 pastries. And the moment the waiter went to tally the bill, Junior slipped out the door,
leaving Senior to pay the cost.
It is the defining metaphor for the entire economic and psychological structure of their relationship.
Junior consumes the pleasures, the successes, and the status of the world, while Senior is left holding the bill.
Junior takes the credit. Senior bears the cost of the madness.
And the mental deterioration accelerates rapidly after this.
Senior's reality completely fragments. He starts writing these desperate formal letters to Junior, demanding that Junior stop ruining his reputation.
But think about the logistics of this. Senior writes a letter to himself.
Why?
And hands it to his servant, Petrushka, with strict instructions to deliver it to Golyadkin Jr.
And Petrushka's role here is incredibly sinister.
Because Petrushka knows his master is losing his mind.
But instead of seeking help, Petrushka uses the madness to assert his own dominance.
He takes the letters, he claims to have delivered them. He watches Senior wait frantically for a reply.
Petrushka becomes a malicious enabler of the breakdown.
It's like a piece of misrouted mail in the St. Petersburg postal system, but it's happening inside a single human brain.
Senior is sending messages into the void and interpreting the silence as further conspiracy.
Eventually, the delusion multiplies.
Yeah, Senior doesn't just see one Junior. He looks around the office and sees dozens of identical Golyatkins popping up everywhere, mocking him.
Madness here isn't just a medical condition. It is defined by the sources as a total severance of communication between the individual and the real world.
Senior's trapped in an inescapable, soundproof mental cell.
The tragedy is that the physical world around him, the waiters, the clerks, the doctors, is operating normally.
They just see a man acting bizarrely.
But Senior is living inside a mutated landscape where he is constantly under siege by his own face.
Which brings us to the core of today's deep dive.
Yes, the philosophical shift.
Because the sources dedicate a massive 20-minute analytical block specifically to the philosophical and theological implications of this exact dynamic.
This is where Dostoevsky pivots from writing a clinical study of schizophrenia into writing a profound philosophical treatise on the nature of the ego.
I really want to focus on this because it's brilliant. The question at the heart of this philosophical analysis is seemingly simple, but entirely destabilizing.
Who truly owns your identity?
Right. Who owns the I? Let's frame this through the cafe confrontation.
Okay.
Golyadkin Sr. is exhausted. He's been chasing Junior all over the city, and he finally corners him in a coffee house.
You would expect Senior to scream, to throw a punch, to call the police.
But instead, Senior tries to intellectualize his way out of the horror.
He tries to blame biology and fate.
He tells Junior, look, this is simply a freak occurrence of nature. God willed the creation of identical twins. We are two separate men who just happen to look exactly alike.
Senior is desperately trying to establish a narrative that preserves his sanity.
Because if Junior is just a biological twin created by God, then Senior isn't crazy.
But Junior doesn't engage in the debate.
No, Senior reaches out his hand to forge a truce with this so-called twin.
Junior shakes his hand, but the second they let go, Junior pulls out a handkerchief and dramatically, visibly wipes his hand clean.
He looks at Senior with sheer, unadulterated disgust, as if Senior is a diseased animal.
That gesture of the handkerchief wipe is the entry point into the philosophical hypothesis presented in the sources.
Okay, walk us through it.
The analysis posits that human beings treat the ego, the I, the concept of the self as exclusive, private property.
Property, like a house or a pocket watch.
Precisely. We operate under the strict assumption that we hold the sole, uncontested title deed to our own existence.
So it's about ownership.
Yes. We might be incredibly generous with our material property. We will share our money, our food, our homes.
But we absolutely violently refuse to share ourselves.
Your uniqueness is the ultimate currency of your ego.
So when a duplicate emerges, whether it's a literal hallucinated double like Golyadkin's, or even just someone in our real lives who mimics us.
Someone who takes our ideas or encroaches on our personal brand.
Right, we don't just find it annoying. We perceive it as an existential theft.
It is the ultimate robbery. If there are two of you, your uniqueness is obliterated.
The I is no longer an absolute concept. It becomes relative.
The philosophical argument here is that the human mind, conditioned to act as the fiercely possessive proprietor of the ego, cannot tolerate relativity.
It responds with violent, chaotic defensiveness.
Golyadkin's madness isn't just a chemical imbalance. It is the catastrophic failure of an ego trying to defend property it has already lost.
Wait, I have to push back on this framework a little bit.
Sure.
Because the sources suggest that the philosophical cure to this madness, the theological conclusion Dostoevsky points toward, is that true sanity comes from submitting to a great owner.
Right, the idea that God or a divine universe actually owns your soul and that you are just a steward, not a proprietor.
But isn't that just trading one oppressor for another?
How do you mean?
Well, the entire first half of this deep dive established that Golyadkin was psychologically crushed because he was forced to submit to the rigid, absolute hierarchy of the St. Petersburg bureaucracy.
Right, the table of ranks.
He was forced to bow to a system larger than himself, and it broke him. So how is submitting to a divine hierarchy any different?
It's a valid question.
Doesn't handing over ownership of your ego to God still annihilate your individuality, just as thoroughly as the bureaucracy did?
That is the fundamental tension of Dostoevsky's entire body of work, and it's a brilliant distinction to draw.
So what's the difference?
The difference lies in the nature of the submission and the nature of the hierarchy.
Okay, break that down.
The St. Petersburg bureaucracy is a material, worldly hierarchy based on power, humiliation, and the extraction of worth.
Submitting to it requires you to actively perform your own inferiority.
Yes, you have to polish the floors with your shoes, as Golyadkin says. It diminishes the soul.
Okay, so how does the theological framework differ?
In the philosophical framework Dostoevsky is building toward, which he develops far more fully in his later novels like The Brothers Karamazov, submitting the ego to the divine is not an act of humiliation.
It's not.
No, it is an act of liberation.
Liberation from what?
From the exhausting burden of ownership. If you believe you are the absolute owner of your ego, you have to spend every second of your life defending it against rivals, against doubles, against the opinions of your boss.
You are constantly at war.
But if you accept that your identity is a gift granted by a higher power and that you are merely its steward, the defensive war ends.
Now I see.
You don't have to violently protect your uniqueness because your worth is guaranteed by the creator, not by your rank in the civil service.
That makes so much sense. The bureaucracy demands you prove your worth by stepping on the man below you.
Yes.
The theological framework says your worth is inherent, so you can stop fighting.
Exactly. The madness of Golyadkin is the madness of the modern, isolated ego refusing to surrender control.
He wants absolute dictatorial dominion over his image.
He wants to control exactly how the doctor sees him, how Clara sees him, how Andrei Filipovich sees him.
And because he cannot control the external world, his mind fractures into an internal world where he creates a double to fight the war for him.
That is the tragedy.
And that makes the ending of the novella almost unbearable to read.
Yeah.
Because Golyadkin absolutely does not find that liberation.
No, he doesn't.
He never surrenders the ego. He fights the property war to the bitter, tragic end.
And he loses everything.
The final scene is devastating. Golyadkin Sr. has been completely defeated by Junior.
He is physically exhausted, mentally shattered.
And he finds himself wandering back to the courtyard of Olsofy Ivanovich's house, the site of his original humiliation.
And in his profound delusion, he hallucinates a grand, sweeping resolution.
He imagines that he is brought inside the warm house, and suddenly everyone loves him.
The bosses who mocked him, the colleagues who ignored him, Clara who screamed at him.
They are all looking at him with deep warmth, respect, and acceptance.
It is the final, desperate fantasy of a dying ego.
He hallucinates that the society that broke him has suddenly magically validated him.
He truly believes he has won the war. He believes he is finally recognized as a man of status.
And then the crowd parts.
Right.
A figure steps forward from the warmth of the room. It's Dr. Christian Ivanovich, the physician from the very beginning of the story.
But the narrative voice is still locked entirely inside Golyadkin's madness.
Right. So Golyadkin looks at the doctor and he sees the doctor's eyes. They are described as terrifying, piercing, and cold.
But Golyadkin's fractured mind interprets this horrifying gaze as benevolent.
The doctor steps forward, takes Golyadkin firmly by the arm, and leads him out of the house toward a waiting carriage.
And the doctor says, in this chilling professional tone, you will be provided with quarters, wood, light, and service at the state's expense.
And he is not being led to a life of aristocratic comfort.
No. The carriage is taking him to the insane asylum.
And he goes willingly.
He really does.
He sits in the carriage, practically weeping with joy, because he thinks the phrase "at the state's expense" means he is being honored with a government pension.
He thinks he has finally achieved the status he always wanted.
The madness has built a literal, physical prison around him. But because he refused to surrender his ego, his mind has painted the prison walls to look like a palace.
It is the ultimate tragic irony. He fought a lifelong war to defend an artificial self-image, and his reward is a warm cell where he will be locked away from reality forever while his phantom double lives his life.
We have covered immense ground today.
We really have.
From the crushing architectural weight of Peter the Great's Table of Ranks to the neurological misfires of the temporal lobe creating a phantom twin in the St. Petersburg snow.
We watched a mind split in two to balance an impossible psychological ledger.
Paying the cost of unmet ambition one pastry at a time.
Yes.
And we wrestled with the deep existential question of whether we are the fiercely violent owners of our own identities or if true peace only comes when we surrender that title deed.
It highlights why Dostoevsky remains so staggeringly relevant. He recognized that the structures of modern society, the bureaucracies, the hierarchies, the constant demand for performative status, are fundamentally incompatible with the fragility of the human psyche.
And that is exactly why this deep dive matters to you, the listener.
Because look, it is highly unlikely that you are going to walk out into a rainstorm tonight, suffer an auric fracture, and bump into a literal clone of yourself who is going to show up at your office and steal your laptop.
Yeah, we aren't all dealing with clinical schizophrenia or temporal lobe epilepsy.
The literal events are extreme, but the underlying mechanisms of the ego are universal.
Totally. We all maintain a ledger. We all grapple with the agonizing gap between who we actually are and the hyper-competent, perfectly smooth version of ourselves we desperately wish we could be.
We all experience the friction of putting on a performance for society.
Wearing a mask while constantly terrified that someone is going to notice we were just standing on the back stairs in the dark.
We all feel that flash of irrational, violent defensiveness when someone encroaches on our identity.
Like when someone does our job better than we do, or when our unique ego feels threatened.
The urge to fiercely guard the borders of the self is a daily battle for most people.
So as we close the book on Yakov Petrovich Golyadkin, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
A question to take with you.
If Golyadkin's absolute destruction was caused by his refusal to accept his own mundane reality, his refusal to let go of an inflated, pristine self-image that didn't actually exist.
How much daily suffering are you causing yourself by doing the exact same thing?
In your constant, exhausting defensive war to protect your ego from the judgment of the world, are you actually protecting yourself?
Or are you just acting as your own worst one? Double, slowly locking yourself in a prison of your own design.
The hardest battle isn't defeating the double. It's realizing you never owned the battlefield to begin with.
A perfect place to leave it.
Until next time.